Alright, we're talking about 2002 heavy metal albums. I'm actually going to keep this one short and sweet. I'm going to start off with Down, with the album Down 2, A Bustle in Your Edge Row. This album was written and recorded within 28 days in Philip Anselmo's barn. This is the first album to feature another Pantera member, Rex Brown on bass. And of course we got Pepper from COC on guitar, Kirk Winstein at Crowbar on guitar, and Jimmy Bower on drums, who's been in both COC, Crowbar, I Hate God, and a shitload of other bands. The album was produced by Warren Riker, who I mentioned before, working with Michael Jackson and the Fugees and Santana. The band rented a bunch of vintage recording gear to make this record possible. And the songwriting on the album is more diverse than the debut album NOLA. Plenty of sludge metal with southern rock grooves and hooks, and several bluesy acoustic numbers as well, for good measure. And fuck, this is an album I've been waiting for, and actually it was worth the wait. I think this is probably their best album, tied with NOLA, and I'm not joking. I mean, the first 5 tracks are fucking perfect. I really dig New Orleans is a Dying Whore, The Seed, and Dog Tired. Those are probably the best heavier songs on the record, but I love the fucking song, Where I'm Going, an acoustic piece, as well as the instrumental track, Tube Interlude, where all the instruments are performed by drummer Jimmy Bower. And Phil's former significant other, Stephanie Opal Weinstein, appears on a track, providing backing vocals on the song Landing on the Mountains of Megiddo, if I pronounced that correctly. Fuck the accolades and reviews on this album, it's fucking killer. And another thing I'm getting tired of is people prejudging heavy metal bands. Like, if you're a fan of Robin Trower or Frank Marino, this is something you'd probably be into. There's even lots of ZZ Top and Skynyrd influence. It's very bluesy. New Orleans never fails at making good shit. And speaking of good shit, we got Dio, Killing the Dragon, Spitfire Records, album number 9. The lineup of this album would be Doug Aldrich on guitar, who replaced Craig Goldie, former AC/DC drummer Simon Wright, as well as bassist the late Jimmy Bain. This would be his final album with Dio, and he was also a member of Rainbow in the Dio era. My go-to tracks would be Killing the Dragon, Push, and Throwaway Children. The whole album's fucking awesome. And Killing the Dragon pretty much means killing the threat to humankind, such as technology. I do have Magica and Killing the Dragon combination pack double disc, but I'm thinking of buying them individually on the special editions. The special editions feature live and studio bonus tracks as well. Next, we got Halford with the album Crucible, his second solo album. This album's a more darker follow-up to the first album, Resurrection. Sometimes it's hard to pick a favorite depending my mood. And yeah, it's another start to finish great record. But my go-to tracks would be One Will and Golgotha. The tracks Fugitive and She also follow. And this is the second and final Halford album to feature Pat Lockman on guitar before he joined Damage Plan as their frontman. In my opinion, in a lot of ways, this is like a darker Judas Priest record. Next we have Black Label Society, 1919 Eternal, Spitfire record. This would be album number 3. Some of the material in this album was originally intended to be used for an Ozzy Osbourne record, and this is the first Black Label album to feature Craig Nunemacher on drums, formerly of Crowbar, one of my favorite fucking drummers out there too. I haven't really listened to this album in a long time, but when it was a new record, I spun it constantly. My go-to tracks would be Bleed For Me, Demise of Sanity, Bridge to Cross, which is a beautiful ballad. Graveyard Disciples is probably my favorite song, and the acoustic instrumental guitar solo, Speedball. This, in my opinion, is probably one of the better Black Label albums that came out. Maybe I'll go back and spin this in the better albums by Black Label someday soon. Another album I haven't heard in a while, Superjoint Ritual, Use Once and Destroy, Sanctuary Records. Another New Orleans supergroup with Philip Anselmo on vocals and guitar, from Pantera of course, as well as Down drummer Jimmy Bower on guitar, Mike Haga on bass from the band Dead Horse, and former Stress Ball drummer Joe Fazio. The style of Superjoint Ritual will pretty much be hardcore punk and sludge metal. I remember seeing Superjoint touring for this album, and Hank Williams III was actually the bass player in the lineup, and he ended up playing bass on the second album that came out 2 years later. And this album was also recorded in 2000, but it was shelved until 2002. And the album was produced by Dave Fortman of the band Ugly Kid Joe. My go-to tracks would be 4 songs, Anti-Faith, Ozuna, and Fuck Your Enemy. Well, that wraps it up for this one. And as you can tell by my voice, I'm waking up and I'm gonna have some fucking coffee. Thank you for checking out Mean Street Journal. Until next time, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And if you don't dislike my content, hey, feel free to donate to my PayPal link in the description. And if you got any suggestions, hit me in the comments. Just don't be a dick. That's my job. Mean Street Journal's on YouTube and Spotify. And also go to tpublic.com for Mean Street Wear for all your offensive apparel needs.